Thank you. Thank you. I want to thank you all for being here. There is no more important issue to this country than public education. I want to thank my colleagues for coming from all over the country to be here today in New York. I want to thank them for their passion. I want to thank them for their commitment. I want to thank them for their wisdom. Michael Lomax over here has done more to help young black people get into college, to get the scholarships and get the money they need. And I know him as a noble human being. And I've learned so much from you, and I admire you because you're willing to speak truth to power, and that's what it's going to take. These other people, no, I'm serious. Look at all those kids from City here, right? Those kids are our future. They're working in our schools. They're passionate about education. I want you to think about Kevin Johnson, right? He had it made in the shade on Easy Street, right? This guy could, if I could shoot like he shot, believe you me, I would have found another line of work than the one I'm in. No, I'm serious. But why did he go to Sacramento and say, I'm going to do something different? Because kids who look like him were getting the short end of the educational stick. And he wasn't worried about all the politics. He was worried about saying that poor kids who look like him, who couldn't shoot, had no future. And he was willing to stand up and speak truth. And why does Adrian Fenty do that? Why does Adrian Fenty go to D.C. and say, I want control of the schools? Because poor black kids in Washington, D.C. are getting so mal-educated, it is shameful. I'll give you one number. In the 4th grade, low-income African Americans, I just wrote an article on it, it's going to be published this week. In the 4th grade, low-income African Americans in New York City and Charlotte are 2 years ahead of low-income African Americans in Washington, D.C. That is the most shameful statistic you can imagine. And you know what he stood up and said? Just what Margaret Spelling said. We can make this about the adults, we can make this about power, and we can make this about politics. Or maybe somebody's going to make it about kids. Maybe when fewer than 5% of the kids who are low-income African Americans in his school system make it through college, maybe somebody is going to have a different discussion. How long are we going to continue with all the adult power issues while our kids suffer? How long? Right? I'm going to give you a couple of facts. I'm going to give you a couple of facts and then end this discussion. It took America 165 years to decide that it was unconstitutional to separate people by race. Look around this room. In many states, people in this room couldn't even go to the same school with each other. It took us 165 years, and in 1954 in Brown versus Board, we said, no more. No more, we said. Every kid will get an equal educational opportunity. I want to know one person who thinks that skin color, family income, and zip code don't determine for most kids the quality of their education in America today. 55 years after Brown versus Board, 55 years after Brown versus Board, we haven't remotely delivered on it. And the third thing I want to say, if we have the same old discussions, we're now 25 years after a nation at risk. We have doubled in real dollars the public investment in K-12 education. And yet the racial and ethnic achievement gaps, which are now going to be made much worse by what's going on globally, those achievement gaps are so wide you can't even describe them, and so shameful that we tolerate them. And I want to say to you, anyone who believes for a second that skin color and family income and zip code are barriers to an education. You know how many people have told me, said, look, Chancellor, you're never going to fix education in America until we fix poverty. Well, the Educational Equality Project is all about one thing, folks. We will never fix poverty in America until we fix education, and we are long past due the time for all the adult issues. I want to close on a note, because people seem to want to talk about New York City. I want to close on one small note about New York City, a note that I think will have real significance to my friend Michael Lomax. Last week, Matthew Goldstein, who is the Chancellor of City University, who transformed that university, he put out the following statistics. In 2002, in City University, New York City public school graduates, 16,000 in 2002 in the 2- and 4-year colleges. In 2008, 6 years after the mayor took control of the school system, that number went from 16,000 to 24,000. And almost 6,000 of those 8,000 children were African American and Latino. Don't tell me we can't do an entirely different job. But I will tell you, if it's politics as usual, we won't do an entirely different job. The politics will be fine, the power will be argued about, and kids who grow up in poverty and kids of color in America, 55 years after Brown, will wait another 55 years before they get their shot at the American dream. We need people like Adrian Fenty willing to take the fight. We need people like Kevin Johnson willing to say, I don't want to know whether it says PS or charter. I want to know, is it good for my kids in Sacramento? And we need people like Michael Lomax willing to stand up here and say, as long as we keep having those same old discussions, we will get those same old results. Thank you very much.